3, 2, 1. Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon. Whatever it is for you, I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schaumler. This is Strong Opinion Sports episode 402. A couple minutes ago, I got off of a call with Lawrence Owen, one of my good friends in the sports world. I really love this guy. He's got a spirit that I love. He reminds me of one of my offensive linemen, a guy I used to be really close with, and who just battled hard for me back in my football career. He's got the spirit of an offensive lineman. He's wonderful. He's just a great dude. I love him. He's Colts insider Lawrence Owen, and we talk about Carson Wentz. We talk about the future of the Colts, the salary cap, the moves they should make, how the year's going, all kinds of incredible stuff. And I can't say enough good things. So without further ado, enjoy my conversation with Lawrence Owen. Joining me now is Lawrence Owen. You are a big Colts fan. You go by Colts Law on Twitter. Lawrence, how are you?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm doing great, man. How have you been so far this week?
Dude, it's been a whirlwind of a week. A lot of stuff's going on. You and I both have construction going on where we live, which is not fun. And by the way, let's address the elephant in the room. If you're watching on YouTube, it's my fault, not yours. There's a green screen behind you. Normally, you got a cool setup behind you. I'm a dumb idiot, and I forgot to tell you that I don't have a way to do that. So that's on me, not you. And I feel bad. I hope you're not too perturbed by that. I'm like, oh, dang it, man.
No, I'm all good. I'll just have to show off some of this stuff. I do have Colts memorabilia. This actually came to me from one of my sponsors. That's pretty.
I saw that.
Awesome,
I saw that on
man.
Instagram. It was this morning I saw that. That's really cool. Hey, everyone. It is Zach from the editing room. And it was at this very moment editing the episode I realized, oh, wait, hey, I don't want to do my man Lawrence dirty. I told him, because I couldn't figure out the green screen at the moment during our conversation face-to-face. But I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I could just make it happen after the fact while I'm editing. I'm like, oh, so here we are. Here's the big reveal on YouTube. Now you can continue the conversation. Enjoy it, Lawrence. I love you so much. You're the best. And there we go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think so, too. So I've got some memorabilia, but I had a house fire about almost 7 years ago and lost almost everything. So people ask me all the time, why do you use a green screen? And I'm like, I'm a little short on memorabilia and stuff like that. And I gave them the explanation and tell them, I've had some of my followers jump on there and send me HD pictures of their Colts caves and stuff like that to use in my background. You know what it's like. Your followers, they want to help you out and send you. I seen that you got something from Indiana also, right?
Yes, a guy sent me headphones this morning from Indiana. And I was like, Davis, my man, I really appreciated that. So, Davis, you're out there. You know who you are. So you mentioned it, and I was going to talk about this at the end. We are going to talk about Colts this entire podcast, basically. I got one non-Colts question. But I do want to start today with I wasn't planning to, but since you mentioned it, I think it's a good way for the audience to get to know you and who you are and your story. Because you told me, when I was on your show, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, you talked about your house burning down in a fire. And that, I already love you, man. I think you're awesome. I want to have a beer with you someday, in person. But that was one that I was like, wow. And it really moved me inside, and it made me a huge fan of you forever. And I think it's cool that you have had so many reasons to not make content. You could be the kind of person that goes, well, this happened and that happened and this happened, and I'm just going to, not do it today. And you're like, no, you always find a way to make it work. So your house burned down, you said 7 years ago. Talk to me about that, because that's a crazy, wild story. I did not expect to hear from you when we sat down 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah. So about 7 years ago, my wife and I, we were living, one of our best friends had passed away the year prior, and we were living in his home. It was our home, and everything was good. I just started doing audio podcasting and stuff, covering the Indianapolis Colts, writing articles and things of that nature. And then while I was at my day job, because at the time I wasn't making nowhere near enough money to, what I mean.
Yeah.
So I had a day job. I'm at my day job, working third shift, and I get a call from a neighbor of mine saying, hey, your house burnt down with your family in it. And I'm like, what? And then after a pause, they were like, oh no, they got out. They're in the hospital right now. But they got out. They survived. I was like, oh, thank goodness. And so, I ran, lost everything. Everything. House burnt completely to the ground. And my wife was hospitalized for a few months due to smoke inhalation, and lost all my pets and everything. And it was very, very difficult because I didn't have insurance in my home at the time, because the insurance had just canceled like the previous year because of foundation issues. And so I had to build myself back up from the ground, having nothing. Me and my family, I got 2 kids, and we're living out of a hotel room for like 3 months. Had to save up money, use a tax return basically as a down payment to get a home, and just build up from there. And what that did for me was make me realize no matter what life throws at you, you can always get back up and continue moving forward. And that's what I do on a daily basis. Whenever I wake up in the morning, I'm just like, I really don't feel like doing this, and I go and I think back, you know what, you've made it through a lot worse. Why don't you just suck it up, come out here and give what the people that are out there expecting you to do, give them what they deserve. And that's what I do. And, you do the same thing, man. I've seen a lot of your stuff. You said the past couple of weeks hasn't been exactly the greatest for you as well. So, yet here you are, you got me on your show, you're making content. So, kudos to you as well.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, and my audience knows this. I talk about it as often as I can. In 2016, my younger brother took his own life, and that's like my moment. My house didn't burn down, but my brother took his own life, and that was kind of we still had a moment where we both were really down. I had to make a choice, like, how am I going to respond to this? And it really shaped who I am. The same way I would imagine your house burning down shaped you. And you said your wife was in the hospital for months. I would imagine the bills are insane with that, right?
Well, yeah. Good thing is we had health insurance.
Awesome.
So
thank God.
That was covered mostly. Yeah.
It's just,
but,
yeah. Well, and then your pets died. Rough. I can't even imagine my pets dying. I just think I would be we have 2 cats, and I would be so heartbroken if that happened. I could not even fathom that. So I just.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy, man. I really, I just respect you and admire you so much. And I was not planning, I was going to circle that at the end, but it's a great way to start the show, because I think anyone who doesn't know you now knows a really intimate detail about you and who you are. And that's kind of pretty cool that worked out that way.
Yeah, I'm pretty transparent. I get questions all the time asking me stuff, and I'm, whatever's going on in my life, I'm more than happy to talk about it. So I understand that some things in a person's life you're like a little hesitant to talk about, especially when it's very emotional, right? But at the same time, we are doing what we're doing, and I've made a decision. It's better just to be an open book and let people who follow me know whatever it is that they want to know. I'm not going to tell you how much I make on a day, on an hourly basis or something like that. But, personal stuff, I don't have a problem with that. And I think it makes for good content because, getting to know the people that you're watching kind of gives that connection between the viewer and the content creator.
No, man, there's so much power in being honest and authentic. And you, in the little time I've known you and followed you, I've been so impressed by your willingness to be open and share that. And I love starting this way because I think you're awesome. And I wanted to have you on because I love you, man. Like, I think you're like a really cool person as well as a football voice. And let's not talk about the Colts, because I literally this morning, and it's for me, it's 3:00 for you. It's 9:00 for me here in Hawaii. I watched the 49ers and Colts game from Sunday Night Football. Let's jump into that. There was an atmospheric river, which is like a crazy, insane rain downpour. I couldn't believe that was actually what they called it, too. I was like, wow, all right. Let's talk. I don't know where you want to start here, but I'm curious, like, what's your general takeaway after watching that game, watching the Colts win 30-18 over the 49ers on Sunday night?
Oh, man. Well, I knew it was going to be a slot fest from like midway last week. They were, talking about how much rain and stuff that they were getting. I mean, it started on like a Wednesday or a Thursday, and it wasn't supposed to end until after the game. And I was like, well, there's going to be a lot of turnovers in this game. Hopefully the Colts are on the right side of that one because, both these teams are built very similar. They both like to run the ball. They rely heavily on their defense and offensive lines and running the football and not turning the ball over. And I knew that being that there was going to be a lot of turnovers, that I was really, really hoping that Indy would be, on the positive side of that, like they've been all season. And then the game starts, and I watch the 49ers just walk right down on their first drive and score a touchdown. And then on the first touch of the ball for the Colts offense, Jonathan Taylor fumbles it, gives it away. They kick a field goal. Colts automatically down 9-0 right away. Like 4 minutes into the game, Colts are down 9-0. I'm like, well, this isn't looking good. And then I started watching the Colts start to get a little bit of rhythm going, and yes, there was turnovers throughout the game. I expected it. I'm glad that certain players who are good at making turnovers, like Darius Leonard, was out there actively looking to use the weather in his favor, and he did so. And what surprised me the most was how good some of these players for the Colts was in this weather as opposed to the Niners, because this is something that the 49ers should be used to. They have these kind of weather games, more often than what we do here in Indy, especially with us having a roof, when we want it. And they seemed incredibly afraid to throw the football downfield, whereas Carson Wentz and the Colts were more than happy to throw the ball in 40-mile-an-hour winds and drenching downpour. And I think that was the difference in the game, was the fact that Indy was more willing to take those shots downfield than what San Francisco was. And I think that that last touchdown catch by Michael Pittman kind of, made pretty much personified how that game went. Was, there was downpour rain, Carson threw it up, Michael Pittman goes up, makes a massive catch at the end of the game for a touchdown. And I'm liking where Indy's going. I understand that kind of a game, you really can't take a lot out of it because of the simple fact that, there's a lot of turnovers in it, and it's hard to gauge a team when you have a game like, let's say, if you're in Green Bay and there's like 3 feet of snow, it's hard to gauge a team in that kind of weather. But taking from what I see there, they found a way to win and win convincingly to go along with how they've looked the previous 3 weeks. I'm getting very good vibes from this team. It seems like they're really turning a corner currently.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like the middle of the second quarter was like 3 and out, trading 3 and outs for I felt like 9 drives in a row. It's just over and over and over again. But you're right. I mean, Carson Wentz and the Colts' willingness to launch the ball vertically. They got so many pass interference penalties where Michael Pittman would burn someone vertically, burn someone deep, and then he'd just get tackled by a corner trying to stop them from catching the ball. Which I don't know. There was a catch or a drop Naheem Hines had down the right sideline on a wheel route, and first of all, that's brutal. But I wondered, some of the time you saw the 49ers corners get beat and then try to, they tell you, if you get beat, just tackle the guy. Don't let him catch it, right? You'd rather give up a pass interference penalty than a touchdown. But I'm like, are we sure they would have, are we sure Michael Pittman catches every single one of those passes that were thrown his way in the rain? I don't know. But what I do love is that Carson seems to finally be really understanding. And it's taken a while, which is fine. It takes a long time to build rhythm and to build chemistry. And I look at, the Rams with Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. It's amazing that they've built the chemistry they have so quickly. It's totally fine with me that Carson's taken a little longer to get there with Michael Pittman, but he's finally starting to understand, I can really just throw the ball up and let Michael Pittman be the man. And I watched Michael Pittman in college against Utah at USC. And man, he literally won the game for USC single-handedly with 3 massive touchdown catches, just mossing a receiver. Are you excited the way I am to see Carson Wentz finally seeming to understand that I can just throw the ball up to Michael Pittman?
Oh, I'm just happy that anyone's throwing it up to Michael Pittman. I mean, we've seen what he can do. I mean, it's USC, and a lot of people. I mean, USC. USC doesn't necessarily coach their receivers to be NFL ready. You know what I mean? They've had that problem in the past. But Michael Pittman, as you talked about, he has this natural ability. He has like 3 hours of highlights of him just mossing people and catching it at USC and coming down with it, turning around. And last year you didn't see that at all when Phillip Rivers was at quarterback, which is weird because when he was with the Chargers, that's all you saw Phillip do was, hey, Williams, go get this. You know, hey, Allen, go get this. You know, he didn't do that at all with Michael Pittman. I don't know if it was just because he was a rookie or if he wasn't trusting him or what. And you didn't see that a lot in the first 3 weeks either, when the Colts started off 0-3, you know, with Carson Wentz. And now as the season progresses and they've been practicing together, I think Carson Wentz is starting to realize, I've got something here with this kid. You know, he has really, really good hands. Even in like you was talking about, I don't know if he would have caught all those, you know, in the rain at San Francisco. I mean, he was targeted, taking out the PI penalties. He was targeted 4 times, caught all 4 balls for over 100 yards and that touchdown. You know, so that's a huge benefit, knowing that even under duress and under special circumstances that are going against the receiver, he can still throw that ball out there. And it's not a 50-50. They like to call that a 50-50 ball. But when you're throwing it to Michael Pittman, it seems more like an 80-20 ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
what's funny in Philadelphia last year with, not even last year, but over the years with Carson Wentz, they kept trying to bring in a jump ball receiver for Carson Wentz, and they couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. They could never get him a true number 1 receiver on the outside, the way that I think Michael Pittman is slowly becoming in front of our eyes. And I remember before the year started, I thought that, man, all the Colts need is, you know, a playmaker in the secondary. They need to figure out a plan at left tackle, and they need a number 1 receiver. And now I'm like, I don't know that that's true anymore. I think Michael Pittman can become that number 1 receiver. What they're going to need is a slot receiver, a speed guy who they can throw crossing routes to or complement. You have to complement the skill set of Michael Pittman. You don't need 2 guys outside. I think you need a guy inside and a guy outside. And I think the next logical place to take this conversation is, do you think T.Y. Hilton retires after this year?
That depends. That's a good question, because he's last 3 or 4 years he's been having lower leg injuries, like ankles and foot and stuff of that nature. There was one year where he was dealing with a high and a low ankle sprain at the same time, kind of like Carson Wentz was, you know, and playing through it. I think it depends upon how the Colts finish out the season this year. T.Y. played 1 game where he was healthy and looked phenomenal. I think it was against the Texans, right? Which he normally plays well against the Texans. But if the Colts at least make the playoffs somehow, being that they're 3-4, and if they win this Sunday against the Titans, they'll only be 1 game back in the division. If they make the playoffs, I think that puts a little bit more pressure on T.Y. Now, if they win a Super Bowl, which I'm not saying that they're going to, or their chances are great. I'm just saying if it happens by some magical, you know, thing, then maybe he retires like at the top of his career. But that it's like the 2 opposite spectrums. You know, if he can either retire really high, or at the end of the season, if he feels the Colts don't really have a real shot, or need a lot more to get to that point, then he may end up retiring. But it looks like to me, as long as he's healthy on the field, he's producing well still, even over that 30 mark.
Well, T.Y. Hilton is your veteran star receiver, and I remember watching A Football Life for Calvin Johnson, and he talked about how when he decided to retire, he made that decision really early in the year, and he said, "I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm going to keep it really close to my chest. I don't want to be a distraction for our football team." And I saw T.Y. Hilton, first of all, lower leg injuries when you're a receiver who you use your legs all day, all the time. It'd be awful. Trying to run on those is terrible. And then he had a moment where he missed a couple of games, and he did an interview talking about, he talked to Andrew Luck, and he's like, "I'm not going to lie, I consider retirement." And so I kind of wonder if some of your like reluctance to you know, maybe accept that he might retire is because you're a Colts fan. Because I look at it, I'm like, man, I think that the signs are all pointing towards T.Y. Hilton's going to be done this year. And we'll see. It'll be interesting. And I'm not hoping for that. Like, he's clearly incredible, but I fear that he's keeping it under wraps to himself.
I mean, that is possible, but on the opposite end of that, T.Y. Hilton likes playing for the organization. He loves the Indianapolis Colts organization.
Well, he took less money to stay there, right?
Exactly, right? Over the Ravens, who were considered to be, and is currently considered to be a playoff juggernaut right now. But Calvin Johnson, he was not happy with his organization, and that probably had a lot to do with his decision to retire as well. So, being able to come into a locker room and be happy with the guys around you and being happy at where you're at, your work, I think that has a lot to do with whether or not you try for it one more year or not. So you may be right. He may be ready to retire after this year, or, all we can do is sit and wait and see.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I'm not picking a side there because we just don't know, right? It's who knows. Mm-hmm. I will say it was pretty cool. He didn't play on Sunday, but the week before, who did they play 2 weeks ago? The Colts. I'm trying to think. It's coming up blank.
Miami?
That sounds right. I think it was Miami.
No. Well,
2 weeks ago.
Baltimore.
There you go. So, whoever they played 2 weeks ago.
Niners, Texans, Baltimore, Miami, going backwards in time.
So the Texans game. It was Houston. I remember now. I watched Chris Ballard, the GM, give him really a genuine hug during the pregame warmups. He was like, "I'm so glad you're here." They clearly have a great relationship, T.Y. Hilton and the Colts GM. Do you think that there's a sense of unfinished business with T.Y. Hilton where it's I'm not leaving because I really think we have potential to make a big run that I just haven't quite made in my career so far?
Well, yes, and at the same time, he might be getting frustrated with that feeling because I think he's had that feeling every year for the last 5 years. And something has happened to the organization to backtrack that. Whether it's Andrew Luck retiring or the injury to Andrew Luck or unable to get a good quarterback at the time, something happens. He gets injured. Something always seems to happen, and that frustration might play in to him not coming back as well because, you get your hopes up real high year after year after year, and then something douses it every year. That's going to play on your psyche a little bit.
Yeah, the Colts, in my mind, are massively underachieving this year, and I don't think it's their fault necessarily. It's not like bad play calls have been made. It's not. I just think part of it was Carson's new and took time to gel. And the big thing is injuries, man. Injuries really set back this football team, and it was almost unfair and kind of sad. I'm like, man, we saw. I came on your show and talked about this. The Rams, the Colts and Rams game, the Colts had a shot to win. I mean, they had the ball at the end. Carson Wentz leaves injured and doesn't play on the final drive. If he stays in that final drive, they might win that football game. And the Rams are viewed as a Super Bowl contender. That's how close to being that competitive and that level the Colts are. They're much better than a 3-4 record would show, in my opinion. And that's why, talk to me about the injuries early on this year because it was such a frustrating thing to go, this team is clearly capable of so much more than they're currently showing.
Well, it starts off in training camp, right? When you got Carson Wentz and Quentin Nelson both having the exact same surgery over the exact same injury.
This weird technical random thing.
That happened, apparently, and the causes of the injury were completely different. Carson Wentz, supposedly it happened while he was in high school. Quentin Nelson just stepped wrong, and it happened the day after each other.
It was like a bone fragment, right, in their foot?
Yeah.
Just like a loose bone fragment, which I've never even heard of that before. I know what happens, but I never paid attention enough to go, oh, yeah, bone fragments just rattling around in your foot. Sounds horrible, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, it does. It does sound horrible. But so these guys don't get to practice all of training camp and preseason, right?
Yeah.
They start practicing the week before week 1. Eric Fisher, obviously, completely out of it, unable to practice until the game before week 2. Braden Smith, week 1, goes down in injury week 1 with his foot injury. So, yeah, there's a lot of problems. Ryan Kelly, the Pro Bowl center, he had his hyperextended elbow early in training camp, so he wasn't able to practice for a long extended period. The offensive line went through so many injuries early on, and you can't overstate how important it is for offensive linemen to get snaps together, right? To get that gel, to understand how the guys next to you are going to be blocking and what they will do in certain situations under certain schemes. And then, of course, the quarterback, he's got to know how these guys are blocking him around him, too. If a guy's coming around the edge, he needs to know, is that left tackle going to push him on out further, or is he going to try to stop him on the edge and possibly allow that edge defender to roll inside, So that's something that has taken a little longer for the Colts for them to iron out because of the injuries. And I think that had a lot to do with, that 0-3 start. And you talked about, like the Rams, not only with Wentz being out that last drive, they had the ball first and goal inside the 5 twice in the first quarter of that game and came away with 0 points. All right. That's huge. Baltimore, they should have won that game against Baltimore. They were up 19 points in the fourth quarter, and all of a sudden, Lamar Jackson realizes, oh, yeah, I'm allowed to throw the football. And then so the Colts were, set up to stop the run, and they did. I mean, they broke that whole record thing that Baltimore had for years and years of having 100 yards rushing. But they were so set on that, they didn't adjust well. And then, of course, they only had 5 defensive backs because of injuries in that game to their defensive backfield. So now that the Colts, I think, are getting healthy and starting to get to know each other, get to gel a little bit, and getting their stars back, it looks to me like Indy's on a roll. And we're going to find out this Sunday where they truly are, because right now Tennessee is playing superb football.
Yeah, my expectations have shifted this year. I started the year really high on the Colts, thinking like, this team, if everything goes right, has a shot at a Super Bowl. And things didn't go right, unfortunately. And then I learned, well, really they need a playmaker in their secondary they could use. I just don't know what the left tackle looks like next year. We'll just see how that works out. They need a long-term plan there. I'd love to see them get another big kind of weapon, a big playmaker on offense. But if you get those 3 things, like, I'm convinced that the Colts could win a Super Bowl. And right now, like, best case scenario for the Colts, in my view, is you're fighting to try to make the wild card spot and use whatever happens the rest of this year to build momentum for next year. When if you get a couple holes on your roster filled, you can make a big run. I'm curious, what are your expectations, and how do you feel about the rest of the year, and what do you want from your team as the year comes to a close and we have 11 games left?
Ooh, that's a good question. See, I'm more of I think we need a premier pass rusher than another star corner. I feel like because of the zone defense that the Colts run, the quicker you get pressure on a quarterback, the less time he has to let his receivers get into those open spots in a zone. And our pass rush just hasn't been getting there as well as what a lot of, what the Colts were expecting, apparently. Some injuries to injuries to Kamoko Toure has really put the pressure on guys like DeForest Buckner to try to do that kind of stuff from the 3-tech at a defensive tackle position. And that's not fair to him, because that shouldn't be his number one. His number one priority is supposed to be stopping the run. Yes, get to the quarterback, but stopping the run should be where he's really based off of. You need to get production from that defensive end position, from that pass rush positions, and they haven't really gotten it this year.
Well, let me hold on for a second. I'm curious because, first of all, I said 10 games. I said 11 games left. There's 10 games left. Someone will get mad at me for that. It's a much easier ask to get a guy who's kind of a gambler in the second or third round. He's got a lot of picks. There was a guy from Oklahoma State a couple years ago who made a bunch of plays like that, who is not – Jalen Ramsey's hard to find, a top corner. But you can find a guy who's got good ball skills and can make plays on the ball occasionally. And another easier thing to find is a defensive end, a guy who can get after the quarterback. And if you build your defensive line it makes your secondary have a much easier time because the quarterback's got to get the ball out of his hands more quickly. He's got more time to survey. So I actually think that's a great idea, which is, and I've said that all along, my favorite thing about the Colts is they build up front on the offensive and defensive line. And if you start there, it spiderwebs through the rest of your organization. And so maybe that's a great approach is find a good defensive end or somebody to get pressure after the quarterback. And then in the second or third round, find a good corner with ball skills or a safety with ball skills who can catch the ball and make a couple plays. If in the NFL, it's really hard to play great lockdown coverage and just shut down a receiver. But what you can do is be next to them, or if that quarterback misses by an inch, you can knock the ball away or get an interception. And that's a very achievable goal for the Colts. Now, I ask you, because they did draft a defensive end in the first round. They drafted Kwity Paye. Why do you feel like they still need a defensive end after drafting him? Is it because he's not working out? Is it because he's just young and needs more time? What's Kwity Paye's future in Indianapolis?
I think Kwity Paye, when he was drafted, what I saw from him is, and what I've been seeing is, I mean, his physical attributes are off the charts. He's got great get off on the line. He's got really good speed. He's got solid strength. He's got long arms. But he's raw when it comes to, his technique and stuff. And that means that it's going to take a year or two for him to get up to speed. We don't have a bookend for him. Right now, we got guys like Al-Qadim Muhammad, who is a decent offensive lineman and has stepped up the last couple weeks.
Defensive lineman.
But he's not scared. Defensive lineman, defensive end, but he's not going to scare. I mean, when I say the name Al-Qadim Muhammad, no one out there goes, "Oh yeah." You'd be lucky if you even know who he is. Kamoko Toure, a guy who's got great edge speed, great bend. When he's on the field, produces, but he's like Paris Campbell. He can't stay on the field, right? He's hurt all the time. And then we had.
What about DeForest Buckner? I know he's not a defensive end, but what about DeForest Buckner's impact?
Oh no, Buckner is scary. That's the thing. DeForest Buckner has been everything and more of what the Colts wanted when they gave away that first round pick last year to the San Francisco for him. He does get to the quarterback even through double and triple teams. He gets through the quarterback, but the thing is, when you're a defensive tackle and you're getting to the quarterback sees you because you're right in front of his face. So he's able to escape the pocket, right? And which means you need your defensive ends to be able to contain and do cleanup sacks. A lot of sacks in the NFL, when you got a great guy up the middle, are cleanup sacks from your defensive ends. And right now, we're not getting a lot of that. DeForest Buckner will get up there, get pressure, force a quarterback out of the pocket, sideways, left or right. But then, he gets out of the pocket.
Yeah.
He's not contained. He gets out to the edge, extends a play. When you're facing guys like Lamar Jackson or, Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson, you got to have contain and good edge presence. DeForest Buckner's going to get in there, and he's going to get the pressures, but he's not going to come away with nearly as many sacks because the quarterback sees him right in front of his face.
Yeah, I'm curious. So it sounds like you believe Kwity Paye is going to work out. It's just going to take some time, correct? And then you'd get another guy on the other side of the defensive line. So if you have two DNs and DeForest Buckner, that's a great setup, right?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, look what San Francisco set up that way, right? You got D Ford on one end, you got Bosa on the other, and then you got the guy that San Francisco decided to keep instead of DeForest Buckner.
Eric Armstead.
So Eric Armstead. So they've got that setup, and it's a great setup. Again, you go look at the Arizona Cardinals. They're set up very similar in that situation across that D-line. And that's what most really good defenses, that defensive line, that is what is scary about that team most of the time.
I want you to educate me on the Colts salary cap. I know you know this. I have no idea what their salary cap looks like. Is it realistic for them to go get a corner, go get a defensive end in free agency? Because it's looking like Carson's going to play all year, and they're going to have to give up a first-round draft pick to Philadelphia. So they're probably not going to have a first-round pick. And if they are in salary cap trouble, I think my impression is they don't have a lot of room in the salary cap. So then we're like, well, how do they add the player or two that they might need to get a Super Bowl run going? Do they have any salary cap space or no?
This year, no. What they have left right now, they just actually restructured a couple contracts to free up $2 million so that they had, to be able to buy some free agents to fill due to injuries. Next year, I think they're around $60 million.
Okay.
But they still got to extend Quentin Nelson next year. So that's like a third of it.
Yeah.
Right there, gone.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then we got a whole bunch of 1-year contracts like T.Y. Hilton and Xavier Rhodes and guys like that. Zach Pascal, Mark Glowinski on the offensive line. There's a bunch of important pieces.
Yeah.
That are one-year contracts that'll have to be either re-signed or find someone to fill that spot. Next year they might be able to squeeze it if they do contracts, be able to sign one more big-name guy, but they'll have to make it in a way to where when that extra money comes in 2023 for due to television money, right? That's when the money will hit on the contracts. Otherwise, they're going to be a little bit tight over the next couple years.
Was Stefan Gilmore ever he got cut by the Patriots briefly? There was that moment where everyone in the NFL got a tease of that, and then they decided instead to trade him away to the Carolina. I think I remember you saying it was never realistically an option anyway. What was there ever a realistic world where the Colts were able to sign a potential free agent like, I forget his name just now. The corner. What's his name? Help me out.
Stefan Gilmore.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Stefan
Gilmore. Yes. There you go. I do that sometimes. I just forget people's names.
I don't think so. That happens with me as well. I mean, you got so many names rolling in your head, and you're always thinking about stuff that sometimes it's out there and you can't reach it.
Yeah. Like, I can say his parents' name, his dog's name, where he grew up. I forgot who his name is. Like you know how to say it. Anyway, was it ever realistic for them to sign a guy like Stefan Gilmore?
I don't think so because and it has nothing to do with the Patriots thing. It's a lot of people wanted to bring up, well, the Colts don't like the Patriots because of what happened with Josh McDaniels. They don't care. Go look at Kenny Moore. Kenny Moore was a guy that came off the Patriots practice squad and signed, and now he's he is one of the best slot corners in the NFL. The issue with Gilmore was he wanted more money now. He wanted to get signed and get extended, and the Colts just did not have the money currently to get him and extend him. And so I just did not see how the Colts could go and get someone not only of his caliber, but, be able to pay him as well. I didn't see the money aspect working out.
I want to ask this, you basically answered it, but I want to make sure I really walk away with a good understanding. It's true then the Colts have the ability to make one good free agent signing next offseason, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
That's awesome. So that could solve at least one big problem with their roster.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if a heck of a young pass rusher comes up, that you're not going to be paying like $15 million for a Judon. But, someone that looks like they might be up and coming. Honestly, I'm kind of – if Ballard can come up with another – Houston or Danico Autry type signing, I'd be good with that. Or, a solid receiver. If T.Y. Hilton retires, another solid receiver.
Yeah.
Because I think the Colts are pretty deep at wide receiver, actually. It's just whether or not they stay on the field or not. That's the issue.
Paris Campbell, T.Y. Hilton, they got to get on the field and stay healthy.
Yeah, they got to stay. They got to stay there and stay healthy. But yeah, they absolutely could. It just depends upon who's available and how much they want, because Ballard is not going to overpay for anyone. He was in the market for a lot of players last year. It's been said that he was interested in Stafford, Matt Stafford, and thought about going to grab him. But then, as soon as the Rams dropped a couple first round picks plus a quarterback, Ballard's like, I'm out.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no blame for him there. So the price has to be right for Ballard to pick somebody up.
Is there a feeling that the Colts maybe missed their prime? You talked about they got guys on one-year contracts that are getting older. And 2 years ago, when Andrew Luck retired, this team was ready to go. And then Andrew Luck retires, massive setback. Then last year, you bring in Phillip Rivers for a year as a mercenary. And, man, I really thought they had a shot. But Phillip Rivers just couldn't quite solve their problem the way they needed him to. Is there a feeling in Indy that this team is past their prime?
The feeling in Indy is they're entering their new prime because of all the youth on the team that Ballard has brought in. You're looking at Quentin Nelson. You're looking at DeForest Buckner, Darius Leonard, Michael Pittman Jr., Jonathan Taylor. All these guys are under 25.
Yeah.
And Carson Wentz still has – if
he's a young quarterback for sure.
Great. Yeah, exactly. So their nucleus, their star power on this team – is all very, very young still when it comes to, football age. So, the Colts fans, they feel like we're entering our next phase of potential. So, and I kind of have to agree with it because, all their important guys are young and extended for long-term contracts, save Quentin Nelson, which obviously will happen next year.
I love that. I mean, it's a period of transition where you go from one prime, you had a down year or two, the old names got replaced by new young names that can lead you into the next couple of years and hopefully a golden era for the Colts. Man, there's one move the Colts made that I thought was amazing that's panned out really, really well. And I think it was good they didn't try to pursue Matthew Stafford. They got a better price on a great quarterback who's younger, who, let's be honest, I don't know how many more years Matthew Stafford has left. Carson Wentz has got a long future in Indianapolis, and he's been a massive home run. I think he's the best player on the Colts, and I think a lot of people look at their record and their losses early and don't understand how well Carson Wentz has been playing. Like I'm blown away when I watch this guy play football. How do you feel about the way Carson Wentz has played? Do you feel the same way that I do, that it's been a massive success?
Well, I mean, currently, if I remember reading a stat right, over the last 4 weeks, Carson Wentz has the highest passer rating in the NFL. Right, over the last 4 weeks. That's a huge statement. Taking away that 0-3 start where we already discussed that, why we started
let's say it again, though.
0-3.
Injuries, you're building chemistry with a new football team. He didn't play much during training camp. His offensive line isn't healthy. I don't think it's fair to hold the first 3 losses for Indy on Carson Wentz's head. That's just a ridiculous standard to hold a quarterback to.
I fully 100% agree. And now that you're starting to see all that kind of come to fruition with this team, Carson Wentz is playing phenomenal. There's going to be a lot of people out there that's going to say, well, in that San Francisco game, he had 4 turnover-worthy plays. And I'm like, did you see what was going on in that game? Right?
Yeah. You get a pass when there's an atmospheric river. Literally, that's what it's called, passing through San Francisco. Sorry, man, I'm not going to hold the turnovers against him. Or the turnover-worthy plays.
No, I mean... No, Carson Wentz was out there trying to play football in a water polo field.
I love it. Well, he had that play on 2nd and goal where I felt so bad for him because I think it was his running back open in the flat, in the end zone. He tries to flip it to him, and the ball just falls out of his hand because it's literally waterlogged. And you're like, I saw what he was thinking. He got criticized for trying to do too much. I'm like, I don't think normally if it's not wet, that's a play he makes and that's a touchdown. I was just I felt bad for him in that play.
Do me a favor.
Yeah.
When we get done recording here, go over, I'm sure it's on Game Pass right now. Go check out the film on that. And what actually happened is as he's trying to shuffle that out to Zach Pascal, who, by the way, was so wide open in the end zone. There wasn't anyone within 6 yards of him. There was a defender that got his hand out and hit the tip of the ball right here where he was shuffle passing it. And that knocked it out, and the ball just went out. It looked like, when you're looking at it in normal motion, it looks like Carson Wentz just threw it right to the defender. But in actuality, no,
he got hit.
That's why it was considered a forced strip sack. It was marked down as a strip sack.
Yeah, it looked like an interception in real time, but it was actually a fumble.
Yeah, exactly.
That's wild.
Exactly. So, and you can't really put that on him because it was just so close. They say that football is a game of inches, and that proves it by far. Because he barely got an inch of the football, and it turned 6 points, for a touchdown pass, a guaranteed touchdown pass, to a turnover, and San Francisco having the ball at the 20-yard line.
How about Mo Alley Cox? He had a touchdown in that game, and a lot of people want him to get targeted more. Do you look at him and go, that's a really valuable player we have that can be a centerpiece to our offense?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. I'm one of those guys that think, I get, the Zach Ertz and Travis Kelce's of the NFL. I want one of my tight ends to be able to do everything. I want them to be able to block. I want them to be able to pass. I want them to be able to do or catch. They don't have to pass.
I hope not, but they maybe they have to. Like we saw Derrick Henry throw a pass.
Maybe they can.
Yeah,
maybe they can. I don't know if they can. Great. I mean, we had one of those last year, and Trey Burton didn't exactly work out.
That's true. That's very true.
But yeah, I want him to be able to block. I want him to be able to catch. And Mo Alley Cox has got he's got a longer reach and bigger hands than Pitts.
Well, he's a basketball player, right?
Yes, he played basketball at VCU. I think he was a power forward.
Virginia Commonwealth. Oh man.
Yeah. So Mo's one of those guys and it's became a very big thing to Indianapolis Colts fans around Colts Nation, talking about get him the ball because his reach and his hands, he can moss people too.
Yeah.
The way been seeing Michael Pittman do it. Throw it up, let him go get it. And Mo tells Carson Wentz all the time, just throw it up there. If there's a linebacker on me, I'll be able to get over. If it's a cornerback, they can't outmuscle me for it. So just give it to me. And Carson's been giving it to passing him the ball more and more over the last 4 weeks, and he's making something out of it. So hoping to see more of that going into the future as well. So especially this season.
Well, it's another one of those stories where I think he's learning how to play with Michael Pittman. He's like, I can throw the ball up. I can really just launch it up and let him pull the ball away from a defender. He's also learning what Mo Alley Cox does well. And I think Colts fans should be actually glad that Mo Alley Cox is not a bigger name, because then he would demand more money. Right? So it's actually, he's kind of sneaking under the radar right now, which is keeping him lower on the salary cap. And I think there's so much potential there, which is going to be fantastic.
I think he was an RDA last season. And which or RFA.
Yeah, restricted free agent.
Restricted free agent. And so that's something that's kind of funny that you mentioned that. And if he was a bigger name, some other team would have snagged him up, and given whatever, a third or a second round pick, whatever he was tagged as, for the offseason. So absolutely, I fully agree.
I'm gonna play some audio for you. I'm gonna do it the jank way, like the old, like where you hold up the phone and you play it in the microphone, and we'll see if you can hear it. I think I gotta play it here, and then we'll see if you can hear it through there. But I wanna. You corrected me with something on your show, and I saw something because you were right, by the way. You talked about something, and I was like, oh, he's totally right. And then I saw something that contradicted what you said, but also contradicted what a guy had said about it. Like he himself contradicted himself. So I'll play it, and then we'll talk about it. It'll be kind of fun.
Bobby Okariki, Stanford. Bobby Okariki, Stanford. Bobby Okariki, Stanford.
So Bobby Okariki came out and said on Twitter, it's Okariki is how you say his name. Mm-hmm. And then I'm watching, he's like, I'm Bobby Okariki. So he said that on Twitter. And then I'm watching Sunday Night Football. He's doing the intro, and he's introducing himself. He says his own name, and he goes, my name is Bobby Okariki. I played at Stanford. And I'm like, what? This is scandalous. What's going on? How? I felt betrayed. I'm like, what? Where did this come from? You made a whole stink about changing how we say your name just to do that. And maybe he recorded that during the preseason, probably. I don't know how that works. But, man, I was just like, what? What's real and what's not? Are we in the Matrix? What's going on here? Did you notice that, too?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All of Colts Nation. Like, it was all
what?
over Twitter. All over. Because we've been calling him Bobby Okariki since he was drafted.
Yeah.
Right?
That's his name, I thought.
As soon as Pat McAfee was like, future Hall of Fame linebacker, Bobby Okariki, that's how everybody's been pronouncing.
He's the one. That was Tennessee, right? When he went to Tennessee and did that amazing announcement. I forgot about that. He said future Hall of Fame linebacker, and then that's right. Oh, what a moment. Anyway, so sorry.
Oh, you're good. So he says that, and then everybody starts pronouncing his name that way. Now, I'm curious. So he even starts pronouncing it. Maybe he felt like I shouldn't correct them because that was Pat McAfee, and everybody now knows that, and I'm just going to say it that way. Yeah. And pure speculation that that's how he felt, and then maybe his family or something was like, no, you need to correct this.
There's the actor Willem Dafoe, who there's a video of him from like the 80s where he's like, my name is William Dafoe, and you're like, wait, what? Well, oh, wait, you changed how you said your name. Like, so that happens all the time where people like lean into whatever they're being called or whatever they think is better at the time to be called. So I just wanted to, I had that weird, parallel between him and William Dafoe or Willem Dafoe, where it's like, wait, what's your actual name?
Yeah, I'm going to give him a pass because we've been confused all off season, all year anyhow, on how to pronounce his name because it's been Okariki, Okariki, back and forth. And you know what? Bobby O, that's what I'm going to call you from now on.
Probably right. Yeah, that's much safer.
much safer. But he needs to get into wherever that was recorded and actually get it changed the way he actually wants it pronounced. Because there are a lot of people out there on social media that are very strict when it comes to pronouncing names correctly, and
like DJ Uiagalelei at Clemson was one of my. I better learn that because I'm gonna have to say it a lot, and I'm gonna learn it and I'm gonna master it and say DJ Uiagalelei all the time instead of trying to say DJU because I hate trying to not like TJ. Tua Tagovailoa was another one I had to learn. I'm like I better learn this so I can say it when I have to instead of just avoiding it all the time. You still hear people say, like, Tatanga Vagloa. Like, I'm like, what are you talking about? That's not his last name. With Tua. I'm like, oh, my gosh. Anyway, so sorry, but it's pronunciation is a big one that people, like, want to get right. And it's to some people that really are sticklers about it, that listen to our shows, you have to get it right or else they're going to give you no end of hassle about it.
Absolutely. I mean, earlier this offseason, there was a guy on the Colts 90-man roster that was playing really lights-out football, ended up getting released at beginning of the year and picked up by Philadelphia. It was a safety named Andre, and it's spelled Chachere, but it's pronounced Chachere.
Chachere.
And I actually, it looks like Chachere. But it's pronounced Chachere. And the only reason I know that is because I was bold enough to be like, how do you pronounce your name? In a tweet. And his family, replied and said, phonetically how to pronounce it. And I was like, thank you. Because it makes our lives so much better and easier so that we don't have to hear all these people, hitting us back in the comments going, man, you chopping this name up like crazy. This is my last name as well, and blah, blah, and I'm, let me get this right. Bobby O, please let me get this right and explain exactly what's going on and why you pronouncing it Okariki, even though you're phonetically spelling it on your Twitter, Okariki.
No, man, it's I don't know. It's just interesting to me. I love that, like it's something that people want to get right, and we're all figuring it out. I want to ask you about. You mentioned him, and I wasn't planning to, but I'm like, well, why not? Right? It's kind of fun to talk about Pat. Pat's awesome. I've DM'd him a couple times, and seems like a lovely human being. I'm curious. You're in Indy. I believe you live in Indy, and you're a Colts fan. You're heavy in that community. What's the community and Colts Nation feel about Pat McAfee?
Hey. I'm going to correct you real quick. I don't live in Indy. I do live just north, about 60 miles north of Indiana.
You're in Indiana.
But that's, I am in Indiana. You got that.
Yeah.
It's a wide world.
And a flat one, I heard, in Indiana. It's a flat world.
Well, there's in Brown County there's some big hills. But most generally,
what's a hill look like in Indiana? Like 23 feet tall?
Maybe. If more than 5 ants get together, then it's a hill. But man, there's nothing but love for Pat McAfee here. No, I mean he is shared and quoted more than the governor is. Okay, so nothing but love. Him and Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
Those are the two big idols here. Reggie Miller,
sure.
Also probably in that same vicinity, you know. But yeah, there's nothing but love for Pat McAfee in Indiana, and I don't know anyone when he posted that couple, 2 years ago during that draft. Oh my goodness, that started up so much that there was memes all over the place over that. I'm actually happy for the guy that he quit the NFL. He wanted to be a comedian.
Yeah.
You know that?
He did an amazing stand-up special.
comedy.
Like an amazing special where he has a whole audience and tells stories about Peyton Manning. Like, I thought he was going to be a comedian because he was so good at doing that. I was like, wow, okay. Blew my mind.
Yeah. And then he I think it was Barstool that he was working for, and then was like, nah, I'm done with it. I'm going to just go on my own. And, he's blowing up on YouTube and got his own podcast. It's blown up, and I'm glad that life is working out for him because he's a very special, unique personality.
Yeah. Well, it's cool that he's become like a darling son the same way you would talk about Peyton Manning in Indianapolis. And what I love about Pat is that he brings this energy and passion, but it's just like he's so full of life and energy, which is hard to do on a day-to-day basis. And he brings the juice every single day. And it's pretty cool from the outside looking in. Like, the dude could live anywhere. I live in Hawaii because I'm like, I work on the internet and I can do whatever I want. He chose to stay in Indiana. It's like, I got a house there. It's where my community is. And it's pretty cool. He runs his business and lives there in the city of Indianapolis. And that says a lot about him and his love for Colts Nation, too. To me, from the outside looking in, is he doesn't have to be there. He chooses to be there, which is pretty cool.
Well, that's a big spokesman for Indiana. I mean, Indiana doesn't have a lot of spokesmen. I mean, most people, when they have $10 million, go, okay, where in the world do I want to live? Indiana. I've always wanted to live between a soybean and a corn farm, But no, the people in Indiana are just absolutely awesome and very, very helpful and kind. And I think that's one of the reasons why Pat likes it here, because it is a friendly area. So I'm glad he chose to stay by far, and I'm glad that he still gives this state of ours a good rep because there ain't a lot of people outside of, I don't know, what's his name? Used to host the Late Show.
Jay Leno?
No,
Johnny Carson?
The other. No, not the Late Show. The Tonight Show? No, that's the Tonight Show.
I think it was Johnny Carson. I don't actually know. I never followed them that closely, but there's some guy from Indiana. It sounds like that did one of those shows.
I can't believe I forgot.
Dude, it happens. One time, I couldn't remember John Elway's name, and then I called him Jim Elway, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Of course I know who John Elway is, but I said Jim Elway, and I forgot his name for like an entire segment.
David Letterman.
David Letterman. There we go. Okay, I should have known that.
Yeah, I should have too.
That happens.
I should have known it way more than you should have known it.
I gotta say, because I love to share my love for the area, and I don't. My love in that area is Cincinnati, which is not Indiana, but it's nearby. It's right on the border. It's very close. And man, if I ever move back to the lower 48, I'm gonna have to spend a lot of time and potentially live in Cincinnati because I love and I know that Cincinnati is Ohio. It's not Indiana, but it's right next to it, man. And that the people in that area and the passion for sports and like the sense of community and the way people have a vibe in that area of the world is so cool to me. I love it.
Oh yeah, I really like the area as well. A lot of people say there's nothing to do in this area other than cow tip, but I promise you you'll find something.
Yeah.
What's odd? There's a lot of big events that happen around here, like the Combine has been held in Indiana in Indy for years, and they're getting ready to vote for it right now on whether to move it. Between the three choices are Indiana, L.A., and Dallas. And I'm like, why would you even move it? I mean, it's more centralized, right? Compared to the other teams, so it'd be a lot easier to get there rather than, okay, well, Dallas, there's a lot of football teams in Dallas or in the Texas area. I get that, LA, yes, there's a lot of football teams, but there's a lot over on the Eastern Coast as well. And, there's the market in Indiana is set up for conventions because Indianapolis is massive in conventions, right? Kind of like how San Diego is massive with conventions as well. And so I think it's better to stay where you're at. It's worked. Everyone who's ever been to it has always had nothing but good things to say about it. So why break something if it's not broken?
Well, I think, man, Dallas doesn't need the Combine financially. It does wonders for Indiana, man. Like Indianapolis can use that money and that revenue and all the people that come in and stay in hotels and go to restaurants. And first of all, I hope it doesn't move. I think it's fantastic where it is. I could understand Dallas, but I'd be disappointed. What I can't understand is LA because it's not a central location. I get it that it's a hub and they got the new stadium there, but I would feel really disappointed if it went to LA. I'd be like, that's just a mistake in my opinion. Dallas, you can explain Dallas to me, although I hope it stays in Indy, but LA would be like, are you kidding me? Like people, it's all the way across the country for like there's more people on the East Coast, I believe, than the West Coast, and it just would make no sense to not have it in a centralized location, in my opinion.
Well, if you go solid West Coast or solid East Coast, you're going to come across a lot of different state mandates, right? That people from the general U.S. is not used to.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I'm sorry, I've heard nothing but terrible things about traffic in LA.
LA's awful. I lived in LA. Don't go to LA. I know. Indiana's much more lax with their rules and their state laws for sure.
Yeah. But I'm not trying to down California. Or
I will.
LA
Boo!
means,
California.
I've never been there.
Awful.
I've never been there.
It's hot and not in a good way. It's just uncomfortable. It's a desert.
Okay. Well,
Go to NorCal. It's pretty. It's pretty and green. There's mountains. That's pretty fun.
Okay. All right.
Let's end with this, man.
I do plan on doing that.
If you ever are, man, I'd love to fly and meet you. Let's ask. I want to ask this, and I want to end the show this way. Is there anything else around the NFL aside from the Colts you want to talk about? I have one, but I'm curious if there's anything going on in the NFL. You're like, man, this is something that I have to talk about, or it drives me nuts, or I want to mention before we go.
Oh man, dude, I could talk about so much about the NFL. There's not just one thing. I mean, it's the NFL. We got 32 teams and 4.6 billion players, and all these coaches, and what's going on in Washington with the that whole situation with the Washington football team.
I'd love to see that owner get some. I want to see them. I see Mark Davis this morning said he wants a written report from the NFL. I fully support that because I'm really tired of people, the NFL especially, covering up for their billionaire owners and not holding them accountable and having any kind of transparency. And especially like Washington is an owner that drives me nuts. And I would love to see him, kind of get held accountable for the stuff that went on that I think they're trying to hide and cover up in Washington. It drives me nuts.
Yeah. Accountability. There's the NFL is picky and has been picky and choosy on who's being held accountable and who's not. And I don't think that's fair. Not just to players, but owners and coaches and everything, I mean, if you're going to hold someone accountable, you got to be a level playing field across the board. And that's all there is to it.
Well, it's frustrating because, if I may, like the NFL is run by billionaires that kind of get whatever they want and get their way. And it's certainly like the rules are not fair to the guys who own the teams compared to the people who work for the teams. It's like so irritating to me that we have all these double standards and the rules are just different for the elite in America. And I'm like, I hate that. I hate that so much.
But is it the players on the team fault of what has happened over, on that team? And even if they do that, like what I'm saying, if the NFL comes down on Snyder in some way or another, how do they do that where it's not going to hurt the players and the coaches? Because Ron Rivera don't deserve any backlash off of this situation. That's true. And so if you hitting Snyder, yes, you could do it, but you got to be careful on how you do it so you're not hitting the rest of the team that don't deserve being hit in a specific way.
That's a really good, thoughtful point, which is, I mean, I've even heard some people say, like, that thing came out about that NBA owner in Phoenix having a bunch of stuff that was inappropriate, and they're, like, having conversations about kicking him out of the league and forcing him to sell. I'd love to see that happen in Washington, where they're like, hey, we're not going to punish Ron Rivera, the players. No one deserves that. It's the person at the top who doesn't deserve to own a football team. If they find what I think they're going to find, I'd love to see him removed from ownership in the NFL. It'd be awesome. To see him forced to trade would be great.
If it happens, okay, good. But that's something that's never happened in the NFL.
Yeah.
To my knowledge. You know what I mean? So, that would be an epic thing that would happen that would be historical. And I don't know if our current NFL president is willing to take that kind of a step. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Probably nothing happens there. I got one I'd love to talk about real quick, if I may. I'm seeing a lot of people, there's this narrative being pushed that the NFL has figured out Patrick Mahomes. And I'm like, what? What are you talking? I played quarterback, and the NFL didn't figure out Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is making bad decisions. Like, he's beating himself. And it's so irritating to me to see people talk about how, as if there's like a magic puzzle that's been solved on how to beat Patrick Mahomes. It's like, no. He's just literally making bad choices. That's all it is. He's doing too much and hurting himself, but no one's doing it to him. Do you agree? Is there anything there for you?
There's a lot there. But you can have the conspiracy theorists and say, well, Tom Brady gave all of the Madden stuff to Mahomes.
He gave the Madden curse to Mahomes and didn't take it for himself.
Yeah, he's like, you can have my share of that as well. No, yes. Mahomes has been a guy who has put his team on his shoulders many times over the last few years, and you caught glimpses of what happens when Mahomes does it too much and he has to rely on himself too much, like when he got blown out in the Super Bowl, too much on his shoulders, right? Or was that the AFC Championship? I can't remember. No, that was the Super Bowl, right? Against Tampa Bay. I'm slow. Where, he was trying too hard. Too much of that was put on his shoulders, and he's going to crack. And he's just like any other person in the NFL or anyone in the world. You put too much on their shoulders, they can only lift so much. You got to have some kind of support there. And Mahomes has not got the support right now that he needs. That offensive line is playing awful.
So is the defense, man. I mean, that defense is the worst in the NFL.
I mean, when you walk into a game going, you know what, I have to throw a minimum of 5 touchdowns to win this game, you're setting yourself up for failure right from the get-go.
Yeah.
Right from the get-go. So Mahomes is probably in his own head more than the other teams are in his head, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because, make no mistake, it's not like his talent has just went, that don't happen to someone his age that's on his level, right? I mean, it don't. So this is more of an organizational thing than it is, a Patrick Mahomes thing.
I totally agree. It's crazy. Well, first of all, the team is last in sacks. They have 8 of them this year, which is like nothing. It's like it's won a game basically. And then as a result of that, Mahomes is trying to do way too many things. He's trying to make up for the bad offensive line. He's running for his life. They got 17 turnovers this year in Kansas City, which is more. It's 5 more than every other team, which I think it's like Houston and the Jaguars and the Jets all have 12, which is you should never be not only in the same conversation as the Jets and the Jaguars and Houston, but let alone worse than them. And it's crazy. Like you see all these people talk about how, last year in Philadelphia, Carson Wentz got blamed heavily. And he did some bad stuff. He playing hero ball, making bad decisions, holding on to the ball too long. But why was Carson Wentz suddenly playing badly? It's because the team around him was bad. Look at Seattle. They've got without Russell Wilson, there's nothing going on in that organization. And every quarterback in the NFL, from Tom Brady to Josh Allen to even losers like Teddy Bridgewater, everybody needs help. Every single quarterback in the NFL, and loser is a tough way to say that. Sorry, Teddy. My bad. I apologize. But my point is that it's so weird how we praise quarterbacks exponentially when they succeed. And we never seem to talk about the rest of the team around him. And then when the team is bad around him, we blame the quarterback, even though it's not really all on the quarterback. So I just think as a entire league and a football world, we sometimes forget how valuable the rest of the team is around the quarterback. It just drives me nuts that we never talk about. Like, I get it. It's hard to understand how good an offensive lineman is and get to know all 5 dudes that are hogs, blocking for the running back. But those guys matter so much more than they ever get credit for around the league and around the sports media.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree. And that's not just because I have the best interior offensive lineman on my team.
Stats are easy, man. Touchdowns and interceptions. People focus on that rather than what's around quarterbacks.
Exactly. And you have to. Okay, so there's a reason why if you win a Super Bowl or if a quarterback, a famous quarterback like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, both known for this. They go win a Super Bowl, they go get an MVP. What happens? They go and buy their entire offensive line something. Because they know they could not have done it without those 5 guys in front of them, right? Running backs who, break 2,000. Derrick Henry, great running back. Without that run blocking in front of him, I promise you he's not got 1,000 yards rushing already. You know what I mean? It's just how it is. Jonathan Taylor right now is getting 5.5 yards per carry so far this season. And if it wasn't for the run blocking in front of him, he'd be lucky to get 4 yards a carry. It's just how the NFL works. And people are so, right off the bat, looking at those individual players in those prime spots at the running back or the quarterback or something of that nature and not want to give the credit where a lot of that credit should be due because, like you said, Joe Flacco wouldn't have won that Super Bowl without a good offensive line. Trent Dilfer would not have won a Super Bowl without an offensive line in that defense.
No offense, Trent. We love you, but no. He knows too. He knows too.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, I mean, you got to give credit to these guys occasionally, and I love the fact that a lot of people, a lot of content creators like you and I, we will do that occasionally. We're like, you know what? Had he not picked up that blitz in the time that in that timely fashion that he did, had his head on a swivel and picked it up, this quarterback would not have had time to find that open receiver and hit him for that game-winning touchdown. It's very, very simple, quick thing.
How much do you think? So I hate fantasy football, and if you have sponsors that do fantasy football, say nothing. But I abhor fantasy football. It's the way that it's ruined. I think the way a lot of people look at the game, we focus on stats and numbers and the things that are sexy, and not on the context of what actually wins football games. And I just think in so many ways, like maybe I'm a purist. I don't know how to put it a better way than that. I love the game, and in many ways, to me, fantasy football often gets in the way of actually like the way the game should be played, and we focus on the wrong things. And I think sports fans are uneducated on what really matters in the scheme of winning football games because they're so up their rear end about stupid numbers that don't actually necessarily lead to winning.
I didn't know I had a brother in Hawaii.
Oh, yeah. Let's go. Sorry if your ears just blew out listening. Wow, what a response, man.
I have never played fantasy football.
And me either. And I never will. It's a job.
And it's a job. Yeah. And that's why I tell my I got followers all over the place. You need to play fantasy football and blah blah blah. And I'm like, if I do that, I wouldn't be able to do this content because it's too much time taken out of my day. All of my time is busy making content, watching football and watching film and all this and recording and stuff. Fantasy football, for one, takes away from the real game because you're too worried about whether or not this player on your team is getting this many yards and this many touchdowns so that you can win money, Whereas, some people, like yourself, don't have a favorite team. And I understand that. And those of you that do that, that's fine. But if you have a favorite team, how in the world, how do you feel when your fantasy players are playing against your team? That's what I want to know. Who are you rooting for? When you're like, your favorite team is, say, the Giants, and you're playing against
Dallas.
I don't know. Yes, exactly. And Zeke is on your team, on your fantasy team. Do you go, well, I hope Zeke breaks 200 yards against my favorite team?
I hope not.
Come on now.
I hope not.
I hope not. Right?
I think most people do, though. They're like, I want this guy to have a good game, but I want my team to win. I'm like, what are you talking about, man?
Right?
It drives me nuts. Oh, my God.
Exactly. And then, of course, again, to your point, it takes away from the guys who actually do all the work, your lines, your offensive and defensive lines. There's no stats for defensive linemen, outside of like sack. But you got guys like, in the defensive tackle position, you got a great 0 or 1 tech guy, who's in there stuffing the run all the time. There's no fantasy for him, so they don't even think about those kind of guys, And yet, the fact that they're there and they stop, Derrick Henry from getting 4 yards a carry or 5 yards a carry during this game, you put it on them. They're the ones that won that game or had a big part of it, but you'll never know about it because they're not in the fantasy. They're not on your fantasy team because there's no list for a defensive tackle or something like that. So, or offensive lineman, again, holy cow.
I had a conversation with a sponsor during the preseason. They really wanted to sponsor the show. They were a fantasy football website, and I ended up not taking it. But it was they were actually they liked my pitch, and my pitch was I'm not gonna say I play fantasy football on your website. I'm not gonna do it. All I'm gonna say is if you want to play fantasy football, you can go to blank and do it there. And they were actually okay with that. So I'm not going to say their name, but credit to them that they were willing to not. I wasn't going to actually endorse their product. I was just going to promote it. So that's the only workaround I've ever found is if people want to pay me money to talk about fantasy football. I refuse to say I play fantasy football because I don't and I hate it. But if you want to, power to you. Like people collect sports cards and I don't. I think it's a piece of cardboard. It doesn't really do anything to me. But if it gives you joy, great. I got no problem with other people enjoying what makes them happy. Dude, I have a video game collection that's ridiculous, and that's because that's what I enjoy. And other people probably look at that and think that's stupid, and that it's fine to have your own thing you appreciate. But just know, man, I think it's bad for the game, and I don't like fantasy football. It drives me nuts.
I think it's video games for people who enjoy sports. When they don't have Madden or something like that. I think that's what fantasy football is all about. And you could say that about anything. When it comes to you can find something else that you could be more productive at than just sitting there wasting time doing that. But then again, like us, we like video games. We could do the same thing if we wanted to find something more productive in our lives, but at the same time,
you need a release. Let me say, I'm so sorry. There is value in resting, like that, and that's for me what games are. Is when I'm tired, I have, I'm just burned out, and I need a night off. That's when I play games. And it's like maybe once every couple weeks. That's all it's really been in my life, which is kind of sad to me. I just don't find fantasy football restful. Like I don't know how that's not like playing Uncharted 4 is a break that it gives me time to actually wind down. There's no way to me fantasy football is a restful break from the world. I'm like, if it is for you, great. For me, I can't imagine how that's even possible.
I can't either, but then again, at the same time, I don't know about you, but I've played many games where I got so mad that I wanted to throw my controller through the screen, and that wasn't restful at that point in
Fair
time.
enough.
But I get what you're saying, though.
Yeah. Well, Lawrence, man, I gotta say I love you. The quote of the day was, "I didn't know I had a brother in Hawaii." that meant so much to me. That was awesome. I want to say thank you so much for coming on. I should have asked this way earlier, and I messed up. I apologize. Where can people find you?
Oh, it's all good, man. I just appreciate you having me on here, man. It's always a joy to sit and talk football with you. I'm Lawrence Owen. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Colts_law. You can find, I got a couple podcasts, one called Colts Law, one called Believe in Colts, where my co-host is DeQuell Jackson, the former Pro Bowl linebacker for the Colts and for the Browns.
How did that happen, by the way? How the heck did you get a show with DeQuell Jackson?
Have you seen me? I do great work. No, I'm just kidding.
Fair enough, but I do too, and I don't have a show with Tom Brady. What's going on?
No. To be fair, Believe Podcast Network got a hold of me and said, "Hey, we have an opening. We want somebody to host the Believe in Colts podcast." And I was like, maybe. And they were like, "We're going to try to get someone that former Colts player." And I was like, "You do that, I'll join."
That's awesome.
And DeQuell Jackson agreed to it, so I was like, "I'm there." I love DeQuell.
Yeah.
DeQuell's such a great person. Every week, sometimes twice a week, we record podcasts, and it's we sit for an hour and we just chat and have fun and talk football, much like what we just did here today. Absolutely wonderful. Also, to get back, you can find me on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. My name right here, Lawrence Owen. It's very simple. You can also look up Colts Law. Very, very simple. Not coleslaw. Colts Law.
I'm just KFC coleslaw that came to mind. I love good old KFC, man. There's nothing like it.
I love their biscuits. But
Yeah. Well, Lawrence, man, I love you. I appreciate you. I think we'll have you on. I don't know when we'll have you on next. We might have you on between now and February, but definitely in February, we want to have you on and do kind of a season recap for the Colts year and talk about what happened and what went down. And I just want to say, man, I got nothing but love for you. Thanks for coming on. You're wonderful. You're a great human being. I love your spirit. Like, you got this passion that's so fun to interact with. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you again. Thank you for having me. Thank you for coming on to my show. A couple weeks ago, that was a great introduction between us, and I thought we have a really good chemistry for people that's never really met each other or live on opposite sides of the world. So very, very fun. I can't wait to get back with you and talk some more football.
Yeah, no, it's very rare to meet another person, and we didn't even meet, to talk on the phone basically. And have the rapport we have. It's pretty fun and really special to me. It's really cool.
Absolutely.
All right, my man. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon.